for the.
All right, so we call this meeting of Brooklyn West Regional School District Committee to order. We are having a little technical difficulty with the live stream. It seems to be side of the live stream. So the recording may or may not be live, but we are recording it. So on the agenda, we're going to have our public comment. It looks like a few people are here to make some public comment. Anybody? Raise your hand. Nobody? Just hit a walk. All right, cool. So then we'll get to our consent agenda. I'll get that motion. Consent agenda. Yes. All right, so that passes. Anybody have any communications? There were several parents and members who have written in to today. There will be in the folder in the drive. Before we get to Carol's report on the budget, I just want to say a couple things. Thank you for all of you guys who are here. You aren't here to make a public comment, just to come and be interested in what's going on. Thank you to Megan and Julie for working for me. Remember, really should or wanted to work on the budget process with Carol and Nancy. While we do appreciate the support of you guys who are here in the room, your support and energy are probably more needed at the town meeting. So whatever we end up voting on here tonight ultimately needs to be voted on at the town meeting. So for you, the family can do that. I believe what we've been talking about, the budget is a level service budget. So just to remind folks what that is, bare minimum basic spending that needs to happen next year with no improvements, no additions, no new teachers, no new programs, nothing like that. Basically what we have now carried forward next year and next year's costs. I think we all got an email from a local resident who is also a teacher for a local resident this morning, just reminding us why we need additional above level service items now which we may or may not be discussing tonight. The way she pointed out, I think we've heard about it in the past with John's presentations on student scores, MCAS, and web, and we always paint a picture of positive score, growth, you know, but she reminded us that yes, we may have grown to 55% of a particular class meeting or exceeding expectations. We never think about that in terms of that means 45% of that class is not exceeding expectations. And a lot of this original budget was an attempt to make improvements. So if you're here or if you're watching the recording and you want those improvements, the school committee wants those improvements too. It's the towns, the voters, and the town meeting, and the boards who need to hear from you. Right? The town administrator from Berlin last meeting, Kristen, she came in, she made the comment that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And the squeaky wheel is you, parents, voters, and taxpayers. Going to town meeting, writing to your select board, writing to your finance committee. We've had several meetings with them. Joint meetings with the school committee and both town boards, and I've asked both select boards and finance teams that after we get through this process right now, we can start even earlier this summer, working together as two towns and one district to try to figure out a way to make these improvements in the future, next year, the year after, whatever it is. Matthew from the Wilson Select Board, I've heard from them, they're interested, they're willing to do it, they're ready to go. I've not heard from anyone from the Berlin side. So other than conversations I've had with Kristen, just asked a few questions. I haven't heard from them yet. So hopefully we'll hear from the Berlin folks about if you guys do want to change, like I said, reach out to them to go to the town meeting, run for any open position, if you're interested in getting involved. That's how I ended up on this board. I wasn't happy with the way the most schools, during COVID, there was an opening. So I joined, here I am. So you're in that same boat. Go out for one of these open positions on the town boards, whatever it happens to be. Volunteer, get involved for meetings, ask to speak at public comment. The last thing I wanted to say before we get into the budget talk, I've heard from a lot of people about property taxes. I mean, my property tax is going to go up. Why should it go up? Why should I do that? My kids aren't in school anymore. My kids are going to school. I don't want to pay higher property taxes. Personally, I don't want to pay higher property taxes. Who wants to pay more taxes? Who wants to pay higher property taxes? But what's the trade-off in that? You know, we talk all the time about property taxes. I can't afford to live here. Can you afford to live here if we don't fund our schools at an appropriate level? What's going to happen to property tax and the value of the home? Why do people move to the town? Why do they want to buy your house? They want to get that town. We've been told for years. You take that one way or another. He says you've got 67% of some classes not meeting expectations. Maybe one fixes that, maybe it doesn't. Better students. So just keep in mind what might happen to your home. Keep that in mind. That's my piece. And I'll say,
What do you find is a level service budget and the budget obviously and it comes from this collective group's ongoing discussions with one another in subcommittees, extensive more than you, right? Well, I'm not being right, joking, right? And the collective efforts with this town, the finance committee. Because if you have everything, not yet, but I'd like to understand that it's right. And I guess the president naming something after me. Or I'm dead, because I don't know right now. You can make a statue or something, maybe, or this is not, but you know, I just want to understand. So in the summer, preliminary budget. That's like the starting point. I think what you see unlike the other, typically, the superintendent, finance director, and then when that's done, now in February, out there, you don't know from past experiences what you know. You don't. They don't know. And these budgets know. But this year, starting in the fall, someone is adding to here are the new identify what the forces. We disagree because what happened in some way, second and third year, and that's what we can say. Everything from that. You know, how do you know everything? When you think about that, watch the rise in the healthcare to rise in the services. We've had some incredible experiences through this process. One of them in particular, I'm going to name again, and that was the night we showed up at the townhouse in Boylston with finance committee from both towns and the select board. And when you lived here, you go up and stand and know that has never happened. Three wonderful outcomes I think came from that. One, we decided that going forward, that's how we're going to talk about these things. But if the towns are going to find out about this far earlier than they ever had before, here's what we're anticipating next year. Let's put this on the table. Let's talk about what's going on. So they're not like caught off guard either. They, us, the towns, right? We're part of the towns. But the second thing that I think came away from this is the capital plans are what we're hearing now, right? You know, they're looking at this and saying, we think we can do a capital plan. That's huge. So look, it's $100,000 in capital plan and the things we're doing. The third thing that was terrific is all of you as parents and stepping forward and you have a public role coming out of a parent form to educate on what this budget means. And we're also going forward in ways parents sitting up and saying, I can help you with this. Talk to my company. I think we can do this. I think we can get that. And look at that because we have been sitting together with the town administrators and Nancy and Megan, looking for ways to fund some of these things that we do in other ways. We know that this is the first year. You know, we're in a situation now. We don't need to help. This is just the first year. So this level service budget is 16%. In our discussion, 60%. Here's the that's where the fight is. If we don't go on level service budget, we don't have this. That makes me one staff member on talk about teaching and learning and have support and mediation is like a domino effect. So we fight something. That's what we need. The last meeting that we had, the subcommittee was Thursday. Right? We talked about Just to clarify, because I keep reading them like making crazy. I'm sorry, I gotta just say that. I don't appreciate it, but I just don't want this to be down the road. I want to be very transparent about that. I just want to end here. And then I'll start talking to you. I have to do this whole thing. You may have like had differences, but you have to respectful to talk with one another and but even after that, we have to talk to each other. So the presentation that I'm going to go over, as Ms. Costello just said, is our level service budget. At the end of this presentation are additions from our subcommittee meeting from Thursday, and then we'll go over that. And then you guys can decide where you would like to go from here. The one thing that I wanted to mention is that the level service budget that was presented in December is lower than where we stand right now for our level service budget. This is because our mandated costs from special education have increased. Special education costs can fluctuate monthly and even weekly. These are mandated costs that are out of our control. This is not an increase that we are facing alone. The majority of school districts across Massachusetts are facing this. The good news is, hopefully, Governor Healy filed a supplemental budget proposal yesterday. It was for $75 million for special education rate relief for school districts planning for a steep escalation in their on-district tuition costs for the fiscal year 24 school year. I feel hopeful that we fall into this category. Very early in the process, but as our increase from out-of-district tuitions for special education is 39% of the increase from last year. That's 925,000. Our increase from out-of-district tuitions, our increase for our entire special education budget is 34% from last year, which is 1.6 million. So I would like to ask that it's important that all of our stakeholders here and on the camera help us support our district and advocate for support from our state representatives and government, Governor Healy. And now we'll move on to it. So if anyone wants any copies, there's copies right there that can be shared. And it's also on the district, the main page of our website, of our webpage. I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit because Ms. Costello covered how. So Carol already went over the process that we went through since December. We met with the towns. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead. So the above level service budget, when we moved it to a level service budget, there were a lot of items that we had. And these 2 pages go over them. Most of these are items that are in the district improvement plan. But this is where we are at this point. Some of the obstacles that we are facing, as I just said, is special education. Another one is our healthcare costs. Our healthcare costs have gone up by 10.5%, almost $300,000. We have a lot of capital needs that need addressing. Our security cameras are out of date. Additional cameras are needed to monitor the schools. IT switches and routing equipment. Chromebooks are outdated. Our schools are old. Boylston Elementary is 68 years old. You know, we have all of our schools have failing copiers. We have a roof that's leaking, windows that don't open or that don't stay open, plumbing deterioration, unsafe kitchen floor, no HVAC for air circulation. That's in Boylston Elementary. In Berlin Memorial, same thing, failing copiers, rotting doors, cracked sidewalks. We had a assessment done, a facility assessment done in Berlin Memorial about 3 years ago. We really haven't addressed a lot of the needs in this assessment. We did put them into the capital plan for this school year. So hopefully we can starting on a lot of the things that need to be addressed. In Tohoto, we need 3D printers to keep up with for some of our classes, security cameras, lack of cell phone coverage, and emergency radio service. So the budget we're proposing is our level service budget. I think the most important thing that people need to remember is that our level service budget is so high because it includes mandated special education services. So the budget's coming in at $22,156,000. That's a $3 million increase. Overall, that's 16%. Of that 16%, 53% of that is special education. Here, I have it broken out by each school. So for Berlin Memorial, the budget's coming in at a $1 million increase, 25%. Of that 25%, 65% is special education. Our capital budget has a $284,410 increase, which is 173% from what we received last year. Our state revenue and our district revenue has also come in, and that's solid from the governor for the state revenue. Boylston Elementary has almost a $900,000 increase, 19%. Of the 19%, 63% special education. I thought it was important to kind of point out what percentage of special education cost it is, because it's just costs that we have to fund. Of the capital, it's almost a $600,000 increase, which is 850% of what we received last year. Tohoto has $1 million increase with 11%. 34% of that is special education. The capital budget has a $585,000 increase, which is 21%. Our main drivers, special education, are out-of-district tuition costs, health insurance. We made some adjustments to personnel to try to better what we can as being level service. This is a revenue summary. So you can see it's split out by schools, you know, the three there. It goes through the state aid, which is our Chapter 70 money, our Chapter 71 transportation aid, charter reimbursement, and then it totals the state aid. Then you have our excess and deficiency, which we put in at $150,000, which is the same as last year. We have our Medicaid reimbursement, investment income, and miscellaneous income. It's all pretty much on the small end. Then you can see the operating assessment, which is the incomes that we receive from the town. So you can see for Berlin Memorial, it's 4.6 million. For Boylston, it's 4.7. For Tohoto, it's split. Each town gets a portion according to the population, the student population of the schools by the towns. So Berlin's coming in at 3.1 million and Boylston's coming in at 6.1. So overall, for Berlin, the town of Berlin, it's a 19% increase from last year from what they'll be paying at a level service budget. In Boylston's a 13% increase. And then down below shows the capital budget, which I already mentioned. These are allocations. This is our own funds internally that we're applying to the budget. Some of these are entitlement grants that we receive from the state. Some are revolving funds. So the entitlement grants are your 240 grant, your 262 grant, your Title IIA, your Title I, and we have a little remaining of our ESSER 3. ESSER 3 is from the COVID, carrying over from COVID. That's what we have remaining. After this year, next year will be closed out. And then you have your circuit breaker funds, which cover your out-of-district tuitions, your school revolving, and after-school revolving. We've taken a portion for Boylston. This kind of gives you a better breakout of circuit breaker. So for fiscal year 24, we're waiting for the final release from the government. So it's in at 300,000. Depending on how it goes, this could come in higher. We're hopeful that it will. But I always have learned to take the conservative approach. So that's why it's at this point in time. So the expenses for circuit breaker are used on out-of-district tuitions. So the revenue for fiscal year 22 and 23 are accurate for what we received last year and what we're receiving this year. You always try to leave a balance in circuit breaker because you don't know what you'll be hit with in that current year, and you need funds that you need to use as a safety. So that's why we always have to carry over balance from year to year. Then I also thought it would help to break out the special education budget just alone, so you can see how it has increased from fiscal year 23 to 24. So for Berlin Elementary, it's increased by 682,000, which is 57%. Boylston Elementary, it's increased by 566,000, almost 67,000, 46%. Tohoto, it increased by 373,000, 16%. Overall, it's a $1.6 million increase at 34%. This shows you our out-of-district placements by town. You can kind of see I went back to fiscal year 19, and you can see the actuals all the way up to fiscal year 22, and then in fiscal year 23. So you can see for Boylston, from fiscal year 23 to 24, it's going from 530,000 to 993,000. And then for Berlin, for fiscal year 23, it's going from 946,000 to 1.4 million, a 49% increase. Our school choice revolving and split out by school according to what students we accept into the schools for school choice. We apply a certain amount towards the budget for each school. So fiscal year 24, we're applying 176,000 to Berlin. For Boylston, 55,000. It all depends on the balances of the accounts. In Tohoto, it was 700,000. And then I have it forecasted out. As you can see, Boylston, we're not recommending new students, and we're not, I don't know the history, but I don't think there's been many that have been recommended in the past. The balance is very low to class sizes. In Berlin, pretty much the same thing. So these accounts will be going down for the elementary school. Tohoto it's going a little bit up, but we're using more money than we have in the past. So these funds are important because you can use these funds for unbudgeted things that happen during the school year. If a pipe breaks, like it recently did in Boylston Elementary in February, it's not budgeted and it can be very expensive. So this is where we go to pull that money from. So we'd like to leave balances in these accounts for reasons like that. Our capital requests. They definitely have increased this year. So for Berlin, we're recommending a new roof, additional IT support, which is a mix of Chromebooks, routers, and switches, new copiers. Copiers are from 2018. We have plumbing repair. I believe it's 2 of the boys' bathrooms that needs replacing. We need to replace 4 exterior doors. They're rotten. We would like to have a truck for our facility department. We're using personal vehicles going from school to school to carry equipment. Boylston Elementary, HVAC installation for air control, IT support, same thing, routers, switches, Chromebooks, building repairs. There's a lot of items in the building that need repair. We really need to address these items. The school committees recently approved an assessment, facilities assessment to be done in Boylston Elementary. So once that's done, then we'll be able to hopefully be able to grab that money and take care of a lot of these necessary repairs. We need new copiers, they're very old. The kitchen floor needs replacement. It has a lot of grooves in it. It's bumpy. It's unsafe for these girls working in the kitchen. And same thing, the truck for facilities. Tohoto, same thing, you have your IT support, which is the same categories. Security system needs to be upgraded. Honestly, a lot of times you go look at the cameras and it's just not a clear picture, so for safety reasons. Would like to do a facilities assessment in Tohoto. Tohonto's 10 years old, things are starting to need to be replaced. We need to start to stay on top of that, so we don't let it get to where our other schools are. 3 new copiers. We pulled the 3D printers out from the general budget and put it into capital. HVAC upgrade and the truck. And then the principal and interest is for the building. Then we forgot the per pupil expenditures per school. So for Berlin, the state average only posts to 21. So you can kind of see our per pupil expenditure, 20 and 21, keep in mind, they are COVID years. So was like a 23,021, state average is 18. But if you go on to 22 and 23, 24, you can see that the per pupil expenditure, look how much it's increased from 23 to 24. It's drastic. Boylston Elementary, same thing, huge increase from 23 to 24, 15,000 to 18,000 per pupil expenditures. And Tohoto went up a little bit, stayed more level, but big increase from 22 to 23, went from 17,667 to 19,108. This I'm not going to spend too much time. This is mainly for the towns, and it has to do with the assessment that they pay. There's a minimal local contribution and above local contribution. This is more, the above is what they have to pay above what they're minimally required to. So that's more for them. I have it broken out by each school. This is the enrollment at Tohoto. It's 65.3% Boylston, 34.7% Berlin. That has to do with the assessments and how everything's calculated. Vocational students, that's important for Boylston to have since this falls on them. Right now, this is forecasted with 16 students at Assabet Valley. This includes 3 estimated enrollments. 7 applications been received to date. We have 1 student at Minuteman and 1 student at Norfolk Avenue. We discussed in the subcommittee meetings and school committee meetings possible ways of what we'll have to look at to make this budget work. Possibles are eliminating a bus route, adding fees, and charging for transportation, school bus transportation, adding fees for one-to-one devices, adding fees when students need copies of transcripts. We can increase fees for athletics, parking, before and after care, and preschool tuition rates. Something we haven't decided on any of it, but something that we'll see how this whole budget season goes and then revisit it. This is our enrollment history for each school. Our Berlin is dropping a little bit. It's going fiscal year 23 is at 200 and forecasting for 187. It's early. All people haven't registered for kindergarten yet, so these are based off of actual numbers as to where we are today. So we kind of have to wait. It's early. Boylston, on the other hand, is right at 307. But again, I anticipate that this will rise and there'll be more kindergartners. We're currently at 57, which is a 7 increase from last year. I should have touched on class sizes. On the side, I put the class sizes so you guys can see. They range from 11 to 19, but things will still have to be looked at as we move forward. There might be adjustments made. In Berlin, they range from 17 to 22. Tohoto, I think the class size is very difficult with the age group. But the capacity this even moment in Tohoto is increasing, and it's going to 572 and 517. That's with anticipating that the school committee approves school choice that's going to be recommended. So as we mentioned earlier, so before I move forward, does anyone have any questions? Because I feel like I covered a lot in a very short period of time.
John, I see you know kindergarten next year is 21. The last time I saw it was 18. So that's
I don't know what happens.
how much more do you expect?
Another 3 or 4.
That's it?
Typically. Kind of some of it depends on when housing starts to be really tough.
I have one, Nancy. Someone else have one? Yeah. On page 18 of the circuit board and special ed. Of the special ed budget, 1.6. What would you get there?
Yeah.
I'm sure you actually have that number. How much does the state, how much will the state fund on that back? I know it's in the rules, but.
So 75%, but there's a threshold, thank you. There's a certain threshold that you have to meet, and then you get reimbursed between the difference of the threshold and what the actual is.
Yeah.
There is a proposal out there for that it could go up to 90%. We haven't heard anything solid back on that. A lot of times I have seen them increase it to 90%, then they also increase the threshold. So it's or you know it's early. I'm hoping due to the situation that we're in this year and that the governor, especially after yesterday's, seems to really understand that the situation that a lot of schools are in, that the threshold and go to the 90%. That would be amazing. And that would really help.
Dan, on page 26, you have the enrollment history for Toronto Middle School, High School.
Yeah.
Since Julie and I have come on this committee, we have noticed, and it's right up there for everybody to see, the difference. If you look at, like, let's say fiscal year grade 8-17, there's 87 kids, and then you look at fiscal year 18, it says 84. If you start to go diagonal, fiscal year 18, there were 90 kids in 8th grade. The next year, we're down to 77.
Yeah.
I think this speaks loudly to the need for another assistant principal at Tohoto. And the history is right here. We're losing kids because I feel like middle school is just part of the high school. And I feel like it needs its own identity. It needs its own leader. It needs a leader that's going to help those teachers and build enthusiasm and make kids want to stay there. When you look at these numbers, there's a reason why certain years we lose a lot of kids. And I just think it's really important that the public looks at that and sees that we have numbers that support that second administrator. And it's not really a want, it's a need. A lot of these kids that leave, some of them go places like Assabet, and we can't always compete with that. But other kids, if they were having a rich experience here, they would want to stay. And the middle school teachers are phenomenal. But they're not seen as a school, and I believe they need their own identity. So I just want to try that out because I really feel like that's, even though we're talking level, I don't think it's anything that we can continue. Thank you.
Next part I wanted to cover. So we had a subcommittee meeting on Thursday. At the subcommittee meeting, it was voted to add to this presentation 2 kindergarten IAs for Boylston Elementary and an additional assistant principal at Tohoto. So I added them in, and this is where we stand with it. Yeah.
You have 2 kindergarten classes and 1 aide.
That's sure.
And so we have 3 classes. Correct. 3 classes, no, it's 3 classes, 2 aides, and 2 classes.
Or if you look at it, almost 60 kids to 3 teachers, and in Berlin, 20 kids. Huge, and then 2 teachers and 1 aide, so it's, I guess 3 people, 3 bodies, I should say. 3 adults, yeah. So there's a huge gap, which is why. Yeah, which is why.
We're not starting.
You know, no, I think you need it, you absolutely need it. I mean, number 2 out there, we're trying to be as conservative as possible. And really, I don't know how, you know, somebody asked John what he believes that how many more extra kindergartners are going to get in Berlin. When you've got 3 or 4, that's what, like, an increase on that number. Are we going to get 20% more? Like, what? How many more are we going to get?
People, Michelle said that we will get probably from the time of December, about 10 to 12 more students. The 57 number happened very quickly. In a matter of days. Like I said,
With 3 teachers. I mean, that's just, and now is there a legal limitation on how many kindergarten children can be in one classroom? I don't know. Somebody, a parent had asked me that. I don't know. Yes, a ratio that you have to maintain at that age level.
So,
I just don't know how any learning will get done in that kindergarten, and if you don't learn the letters and your numbers in kindergarten, then how are you going to learn?
that was sarcasm.
You should say that.
I get, you get.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, this monkey number includes
So this is,
No, it doesn't
this,
read.
this right now includes the aides and the assistant principal aides. It's an increase of 225,000. In this number.
So this doesn't affect Berlin Memorial at all. Right, it affects Boylston and Tohoto. For Boylston Elementary, it's $100,000 increase. For Tohoto, it's 125. And this is rough numbers.
What's the number one thing that people want for our schools, low class sizes?
low class sizes, changing culture.
And for assessments,
I'm sorry, this
Oh,
will
no.
affect Berlin for the assistant principal at the Honda, right?
say that again?
This will affect Berlin's,
Yeah,
for the.
right, it doesn't affect the elementary school.
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
So it's 100K for DPS.
Yep.
And
125.
100, which would be 60,000.
Yeah. For the assessments for the towns. For,
Nancy, what do you? Nancy's gonna put the presentation, the school.
so, instead of going through everything, just to give you the ballpark, for Berlin, it's an increase of $43,175. For Boylston, it would be, and this is an increase of what I proposed earlier, from level service. Their assessment would be an increase of $182,000. And that's my presentation.
Any questions?
Just want to say thank you to Nancy and Carol. Like, everybody needs to know how over and above these 2 humans worked on this. I mean, quite honestly, I've never seen people, my background is corporate America and finance, and they have just gone over and above for working in the public sector, and we're really working anywhere. So thank you for putting the time and effort in for our kids. I mean, we are all parents, we're invested, but, you know, it's their job, and they really feel it, so.
A lot of time I haven't seen
Outside of hours, nights and weekends, just so much extra work on this, so. it's really appreciated. So the other thing I just want to say too is, we threw out the idea to it's not I think it was to get the conversation started with the committee, to get a pulse on the committee. Obviously Julie and I agree. We're in favor of that. What do you guys think about that? Can you agree at PBS? I don't know. Is there anything else you feel that's more important than those two ask? Well, yeah, the assistant principal, I think that's been kind of a given, I feel, already said that. Especially with those classes and all that kind of thing. You gotta have at least 20, so I think that's absolutely.
Not involved, doesn't mean it's going down on the chance. Number one is the trust board and special education works with five people and then it's not being held up. What I want to know is, are we still in money? Like I know how to stretch things, special ed already is. Without these people. So sometimes we need contract services to make sure that we maintain physical compliance, as you said, we don't require them to come to that special education services that we covered today. We will, it limits our ability to develop programming and be able to serve students. So we have to keep it out, numbers, ratios. I think we can talk too about trying to keep our revenue sources. That's why. We should be able to get that.
The other thing I wanted to ask the principals, one of the things that I thought was a huge need, just from my view as a parent and speaking with other parents, is the behavioral analyst. Do you feel that's a huge loss for the schools? I mean, just given what you see day to day, you're both dealing with behavioral issues with this position. What's the need right now for this position?
Sure. We have one BCBA, which is a board certified behavior analyst for the entire district. So she's covering all of the schools. She's covering a large developmental age span, all the way from preschool, all the way to 12th grade. And board BCBAs spend a significant amount of time with students, families, and staff that work with the children that need their services. Very intensive services. Our BCBA is right now really stretched very thin. And the question is, do I feel that we still really need a second BCBA? Absolutely, the support and the need. But again, going back to the compliance, we will manage that if we have to bring in some additional contract services, which are not incredibly efficient, either cost or in terms of resources. That's what we'll need to do in order to be a lot more efficient.
Again, do the principals feel that the schools are, I don't want to say suffering, but is behavior an issue in the school that this position would help?
I really think that having an additional BCBA will allow us to have more tiered interventions for our students. So we are constantly faced with behavioral situations that come up, and really having someone who can access and advise us on particular ways to deal with the situation is helpful if they have a behavior background. That's not always available to us because the BCBA currently is stretched so thin. And so similar to how we have tutors for reading and tutors for math, it is an intervention that's a necessity with all of these kids who haven't necessarily been in the foundation of school, and they're coming into a place where we are all trying to be together every day and in those classes. And so I agree with you.
I think the reality, I agree with what you're saying, it's In reality though, we can go through this entire list of like 25 things, and you say, John, you really do that, I don't need that, I need updated laptops, and let's just look at the list here, do I want that second paraprofessional, I absolutely do. You know, do I want, there's a concept of it, we want, there's a balance between what we want, what we think is better. And that's, you know, where you strike the balance of like, you know, like talking about the second system. That.
My question is, one more certified. Well, I get that, but not like. That speaks to me.
That's not. Our BCBA is the most safe. Early in the background. And is a bill. Every day I see her, I thank her for coming. She was just this remarkable.
Yeah, it is typical that they cover a large age span. But as with a lot of educators, they don't have a specialty at one. And Morgan has done a fabulous job of covering that large development.
I have two questions. One of them, one of them side, are we damaging older students, high school students, their opportunity of the good colleges go beyond high school, but not offered? You know, something mentioned this one. We heard their ability to
You are asking just the right person. Can I get 2 minutes for this? Because I just spent this morning with my son, freshman in college, a graduate of Toronto High School, and his girlfriend, a college freshman, a graduate of Toronto, talking about this very thing. And what they talked a lot about was the kids who didn't stay. They talked about the kids and made the point, Jack, she's just being principal. This is like scarred for life by being my kid. We lose kids to places like that because that's the place for them. And Carol can name kids, and already be able to name kids. That's where they belong. It's the perfect school for them, and we should never worry about losing them. It's the kids who go to the sunshines, who go there in part for the rigor of the learning, but in part for the connection to. That is not a strength of public education in general, but Toronto specifically. You know, the example they were using this morning, that valedictorian of last year's class of 22, of early student. She, multi-sport captain, you know, perfect grade point average, fabulous SAT scores. Could not get into the elite colleges that she wanted. Whereas if she had gone to a private school, that would have been much more. The connections are there, the resources are there, the experiences are there. And that's, I think, where we need to start to build. We're giving kids more elite experiences. Nature really, where they talk about how experiences for kids. You know, we want to celebrate those things and make them known to recruiters. So they're seeing these kids are doing these amazing things and they're not being recognized. We have some of the things we need. There are some things that we need that we don't have yet. We don't have the capacity for. You know, we stopped letting high school teachers teach an extra course. And that has impacted the availability of coursework for students. And then my own kid could sit in the back of one class and take a different class because the math teacher, wherever you are, was willing to work with him on her own time to get him through these very advanced math. We have the potential. It's focusing on it. And that's something that Carol and I talked about this summer. The potential of the school is amazing. Having some of those things, that helps us get there. The reality of our situation is, you know, we can't do 3 years worth of work in 1 year. I think that's a part of that. It's changing. Everything. Realize we can barely afford what we got. That's the long way. We have someone high school is ready to come.
I guess, Carol, you mentioned it was painful to cut. Julie and I, all of us really were part of this process where we helped, you know, we want to help compete. Heard the ideas coming from the administration. We got so excited about these upgrades for our district. And then, you know, one by one, we had a watch as these were cut from the budget. And I guess I just want to say, I think that I don't want us to say, don't worry, we're going to do this in 3 years. We need to do this in 3 years. This is gonna happen. Because if we don't, if nobody is willing to push and make change and get uncomfortable, then nothing's gonna change. We're just gonna be having the same conversation in 5 or 10 years at different paces. You know? So I mean, I think, you know, Matt, Mika brought up a great idea at the last meeting about maybe it was Mike, but we all kind of agree. And I think that's what we need. It's on the radar now for the towns. It's on the radar now for the folks living in the town. We're gonna have to spend money if we want to get this. So we're gonna have to figure out how to fundraise, we're gonna have to figure out how to work with the towns, maybe move things around in other places. But I think, you know, we need to say we're doing this. It's not just like, yep, this is on our 3-year plan, and then next year it's the same thing. Well, we can only increase taxes by this much, so we can only do, you know, level service and special ed on this much. So I think that committee is a prime step. And to Mike's point, people need to get involved. Wait, Mike? All right, that's all I have to say. I know you are, but it's not just you, it's up to Carol, we have all this. I mean, because Carol's just making the decision, the money's there, it's just, you know, the corporate spending, we're gonna just, yeah, that we have it, there's money in the conversation, but if it's not, that's how it's not politics, you know? On here, you know, this is great. Young and so young, our students. Both as, you know, schools.
budget solutions and cut. You know, but I think then we go to finance committee, and what are those asks, what, the taxes. So like putting the numbers into the already doing, you know, I mean, none of us want to sacrifice.
We're talking about those who are on complex, helping them. Anything else?
Yeah. But, I have to know, because I did. I just read it. I think it's a lot. It really is. But, we've lost 73 kids in 5 years. That's how we lost. We talk about culture, right? At middle school, somebody in there, some hospital teachers, programming, help certain kids, want to careers, and then that's at school. I think there's definitely, that list is heartbreaking. Really, yes, maybe 25-year-old in class. Getting outside. There's stuff on. And something like that. And then this number is so shocking. So we need to go and really keep our school strong. Really important.
Maybe not, anybody
Yeah.
wants anything? Yes.
I had a couple questions. So I thought it was really helpful in your presentation where you showed the, oh yeah, sorry, my name's Leslie Greiner, and I have one child in Boylston Elementary, one coming into kindergarten next year at Boylston Elementary. So, and I live in Boylston. So my question is around the, well, I wanted to say thank you for putting the benchmark spending per student into the presentation. I think that's a very powerful point. And I come from the corporate world too, Megan. And so I think like that is what are other companies, you know, that are in the same market size, et cetera, that what are they doing and how can we set ourselves up to the same standard? And I think that's a powerful point to make. And so when you ask the question about class sizes and kindergarten, how big can they get really, right? And there's no limit. Can we put some information potentially into the class size, you know, benchmarking data as far as class sizes and throughout the state? Where do we stand class size wise? Because I'm thinking the intent of this is to influence, right? And I just think that's a very powerful point. If we're falling behind, it's clear if we're failing our students ratio wise. And then I thought about the special education budgets going up. I'm not clear on which classes those special education ads are in. I'm assuming that means more special education kids are coming into, or kids that need the special education support are coming into the schools, right? That's what we're talking about, increased spending.
It's a mix of both.
Okay.
So it could be new students coming into the schools, and it could be existing students who need additional support.
Got it. So there's nothing that would help influence, I guess, spending, because it's a sunk cost no matter what, right? So it's not like we know they're coming into kindergarten, and if we don't make that, we'll put aides there no matter what, right? If wherever there are additions to the classes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was just trying to get clear.
It's Top 1 to 4, yes.
Yeah.
Especially when the young kiddos come in.
Sure, okay,
But very good about
thanks.
it. Oh, sorry.
I saw it.
Okay.
And sound, please, for us.
Jerry Kwong, Boylston. I don't have a question, I just have a couple quick comments. If it were up to me, I would double your budget. Because I know I would return, I would get a 20-fold return on that in the long term. Beyond that, I was going to applaud after Megan's comments about thanking Nancy and the board for their time commitment. But I didn't want to break meeting protocol. So I just want to take this opportunity to say my hats off to literally each and every one of you for the time you put in your unwavering commitment to our children. I get asked a lot to run for this board or that board, and I don't, because I don't want to commit the time. And so again, thank you to each and every one of you. Because I know personally how much time all of you put into this. And I just want to say thank you.
My name is Olivia Jones. I am a new resident of Boylston. In October. I have a kindergarten at best, as well as a 5th grader who eventually will be going to, possibly depending on what this looks like, Tohoto next year. And I say it like that because I come from a district where we're paying over $20,000 per pupil. So when I look at this budget, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your transparency, because as a new member, this is very important. And as an educator myself within the state of Massachusetts, I teach 2nd grade here in the state. It's important for me to see how you guys have decided, how you guys are trying to advocate for your students in this town. But I do want to just share the concern. John and I speak regularly, particularly with regards to that floating nurse. My kindergartner is not a child you guys can play with, and when you see him in middle school, you're gonna be like, oh snap, watch out for that kid, make sure you have that nurse. But they only have a floating nurse in the entire district. There's no humanity to talk to the child. So, I leave that on your laps. And I also share with you that I'm well protected for student growth. I'm a little concerned with the fact that we're paying 23 per student. I think I was looking at, what did I say? You guys have students coming out of district and you're paying, the town is paying 1, 2, 3, I think for that agricultural school. I'm sorry, the name is Shoba Ag, I think you guys referred to it as Norfolk, thank you, sorry, your glasses. So it's 28,000 for that one student. For Minuteman, we're doing 20 for that one student. And then if I'm reading that correctly, past it down 17. But definitely the state says the level is only 17 per. And what is our value? What are we saying we're paying per child? So I just want to throw that out there, because that's a whole lot of numbers. I teach 2nd grade, those are lots of big numbers and big values that I'm not even worried about. But at the end of the day, my sons are going to have to dial 911 because he's not a child that, if he's not having proper care, otherwise known as someone assisting, making sure he's dressed properly when he goes outside. I think we're talking about an assistant TA. If he's not dressed properly, or he does not have the assistant that he needs to make sure he goes outside, he will have an asthma attack, and you will be calling 911 if you don't have that floating nurse or that TA to assist him. He's learning because he is 5. Some of you may have seen him bouncing in the hallway. He has a 10-year-old big brother and an 18-year-old big brother. So he's a savvy kindergarten. That means he says things that most kindergartners do not always say. That's the good and the bad. But I do want you guys to just highlight that, because I think that's important. That little boy is going to get some 1st grade teacher a run for her money, and if she doesn't have an assistant, You guys are gonna be calling me to say, Mrs. Jones, what's going on with your child? No, we don't need to be CPA, but those are amazing people. I wish we had one for the entire building, each building in the school, because that is you've never been in a classroom, think about the last birthday party each and every one of you guys went to, and you tried running that entire birthday party by yourself. But pause, that's if you have a classroom, a birthday party with 20 or maybe 15 typically developing children. We're not talking about students who are neurodiverse. We're not talking about children who are unable to control those impulses. I've seen second graders flip tables. I've seen first graders flip tables. I've seen a first grader climb on the top of the table and then try to jump. Why? Because the thought popped in his head. So the idea that they don't have the support that they need at that elementary school, everyone in this town should be questioning if this is the building that they want to send their child to. Because I'm not going to lie and say, I'm not sure if I want to remain in this town. I just bought a beautiful home. I love my home. I had a whole bunch of trick-or-treaters come by. Apparently that's a thing. You were probably at my house, all right? But to digress, my point is still the same. I love my building. I love the home that I live in, that home that my husband and my family and I purchased. But I do not know, looking at these numbers, if this town is capable. I know my men. So let's do 500 things, because I would love to start to settle and establish a culture and relationship and roots here. But I'm savvy enough and have enough resources enough to pull them to a district where we are paying $20,000 per child with our 17, is that 18,000? Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, should we? Anybody want to make a motion? We have, so what we have to do here is we have to vote on a budget, make a motion for a budget, and then discuss that budget. And in addition to that, we also have, with the talk about the special education increases and all that, we talked last meeting about sending a letter to the state, to our representatives. So I sent that all to you. We talked about it yesterday in the subcommittee. As far as language goes, template, so we can discuss or just agree to send that. So that's the two things we have to do.
All right, I'll make a
Also, just a question,
Sure.
on the table, they're at level, right, and then at level plus 2 aides.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just,
Yes, that's right.
hypothetical motion.
Right.
Yes.
Or anything else.
You can make a motion for any budget.
But I think,
Yes.
This is the number that includes the aides.
yes, so Julie, go ahead. Well, I guess the question is, what is the cost of the BCBA? Oh, behavioral analyst.
So question,
Um,
cost, the behavior.
yeah,
Well, that would be district wide, so what do you,
A good 90.
90, okay, yeah.
that's that.
So we have a.
With benefits.
20% more,
Yeah,
so another
Another
18
Japanese
grand, yeah,
special
so
education.
110.
yeah, okay.
For Japanese special education, going for supplemental support, is that what it is?
Yeah, so what happened, if you're not aware of what happened, Charles probably explained it better, but they went from, every year tuitions for these kids increased a couple percent here or there. This year it went to 14%, which is that huge increase in just the cost for a single tuition with the addition, like Nancy said, of additional students who need services. That combination is what's kind of one thing.
That the increase in special education costs. Yeah, so there's a state agency, I'm gonna look to Nancy for reassurance on this, so I get this right. The state agency is OSD, the Operational Services Division, and they set the rates for special education programs. And they approved a 14% increase for all programs, for all private programs for next year. And that has resulted in a substantial increase, not only for our district, that we've been looking at those numbers, but for other districts as well.
Matt,
Sorry, I just want to, Matt, you can close the board for a second. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, it's too much fun to say that. The letters to the state representatives, I just want to say that's a coordinated effort, so there's also letters coming from board of selectmen. We've also asked the finance committee to send a letter. I don't want to commit them to do it. I would imagine they will. And we've also already engaged both of these Representative Point and Senator Kennedy. So we're on their radar, and Senator Kennedy's team specifically has encouraged us to write these letters and engage them. And just one more point is, you know, looking at that list and in the talk about how the 3-year plan or still is a 3-year plan. Only, you know, we're gonna obviously, the county's gonna do everything they can to get to that point, but some of that may come from other areas, right? And Carol and Megan and Nancy have, to their credit, have gone out, they've engaged businesses, they've engaged nonprofits. We've had some success already bringing funds in, at least tentatively at this point. There'll be more to come on that as it kind of firms up, but maybe that frees up some other funds to do some of these other things that, but it's gonna be, you know, it's not gonna be as simple as how much can we raise taxes every year to get there. It's gonna be, we're gonna have to go out and fight for it and scrap for it and find other pieces of alternative funding to do it. And that's unfortunately the way it is. Is it right? Probably not, but the state also needs to step up. So that's one of the main places we have to fight.
and I know the coordinated effort, no parent groups or yeah.
Yeah, to that extent, I'm Kyle from Berlin, Jackie is from Boylston, we're the heads of the 2 of the parent teacher groups. We've also been in contact with the Honto parent teacher group and CPAC. And as of Monday, once your numbers are approved and we have the official numbers to put into our templated letter, we too are pushing a letter writing campaign out to all of the families across the district. We're actually going to also do some student letters and ask people to work with the students to get letters across. The good news is there's precedence, there's value to these for a longer term change, so that we aren't having the same conversation next year, and so that we can do money that spend our tax dollars on all of our students fairly, and let the state take on some of the additional costs of the special education students. So look for that to come. Reach out to all your parent groups. We're on it. We're just waiting for this number to pass, and the template will go out with all of this campaign information on Monday. It's a long-term fix, right? It's not going to be this year's budget that it impacts, and so we're still going to have to talk about what we do to meet this year's budget, and that's there's other stuff happening too. But collectively, we parents can change this, and we must. So look out for those emails.
And other districts I've talked to, they do the same. Everybody's aware of that. I'm assuming that's part of why Nancy mentioned the governor just yesterday put through some more money for her. I'm assuming she's hearing what other districts are saying. So it is working. Yep.
Hi, Christina Diaros, Wilson. I was just thinking, you guys, I know you guys are getting ready to vote and decide what you're going on. Strategically, have you guys thought about when it comes to the town vote? And we talked about this at the last meeting a lot when the Berlin finance person was here. Once you guys vote on something, nothing higher can be voted, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing can come in higher. So have you thought strategically about putting like a little bit of a higher ask forward, knowing that we're going to have this process back and forth potentially with the towns and things and votes, maybe one side agrees, one doesn't, you know, typically you put forward you always put forward something on top of what you want, right? Because there's always going to be this negotiation back and forth about maybe taking this out and taking this out so that we can finally come to collaborate and agree on a thing. So have you guys thought about I know we have a butt level, but have you thought about what maybe your level service plus could be, and then what you may ultimately have to come down to if it comes down to that?
You don't get what you don't ask for.
That's right.
Yeah. Previous meetings, some budget,
Also, I don't know if we know if on town floor at the meeting, if we can just take things out of the budget. So I think
No, it's approved.
it's approved or don't approve. So if we go too high in Berlin or Boylston and people are like, no way, then what do we go down to? You know, in Boylston, we do have the support of the select board and FinCom at level service, but in Berlin, that means we're getting rid of 20 teachers with what they want to give us. So, you know, and that's not just 20 Berlin teachers, as, you know, we talked about last time, that's spread across the board. So we have to find a balance,
Sure.
right?
And that goes back to what I was saying.
Which is exactly what
earlier.
Carol was saying.
I'm fearful that when we put in that position, that we cannot lose staff. We cannot lose it.
We can.
Yeah, I agree with the balance. I think that if you guys went in too conservatively, let's say, they're gonna push back on you anyway, because these increases to someone in the town who doesn't have the context of what's going on is gonna see that number and they're just gonna be like, what? So
Yeah.
there is a very delicate balance, I agree with you, about what you guys put forward, but just hoping that you guys have some buffer kind of in there so that we can sort of, if you needed to come down, it wasn't like the,
And I know hearing from the range and the parent groups, between now and May 1st, there is going to be a campaign. Come to town meeting, because you vote.
And an educational forum, April 26th, guys, mark the calendar.
But I don't think there is buffer. I think like Mike just said, it's you vote on, so if the school.
No, this will go to Matt Tierney, you can tell us about it.
But if
You'll
we-
go to town meeting, and say,
Yes.
make a motion on budget and vote it, yes or no. We went over the process last time, if one town agrees and the other town doesn't agree, it goes back for a second look, we can adjust it or not adjust it, it's up to us. Then it goes back to the town meeting, same thing, vote yes or no. One town still doesn't agree, and another town does, and that goes back to us again. Then it becomes a district-wide meeting run by the school committee, so sort of the third chance. If that doesn't have this, a big timing component to it as well, notice and things like that, so. The bottom line is, people want this, they have to go to your town meeting, and you have to vote on it. Because we're gonna approve something here, and it's gonna go, and the
Yeah,
town's gonna tell us whether they want it or not.
but this is what,
And the town is the voters.
yes, but this, meaning what we approved today, we can't take anything out, we can't, so let's say we
At
approve.
town meeting, no, we can't.
Yes, that's what I think
At
Christina was
town-
saying.
Yeah, no, at town meeting.
You
this
can't
is what it
change
is.
this.
You
So
can
if we
say
ask
no,
for
you
too
know,
much and it just gets voted down, then we get nothing,
No.
right? Well, you don't get nothing, you get the,
It comes back.
Christine's argument is that if they vote it down, we can come back with something else, but we can come back with something lower, but we can never go higher. So if we leave this meeting and we say we're gonna do a level budget, and the community's upset because they say, hey, we need a lot of these things you advocated for, we still need them, we can no longer go back and say you wanna add them in. Whatever our starting point is, I understand the danger point of going too high, and I think that's very valuable.
Yeah.
But I also understand it's a very valuable point that Christine's making, saying, you have to think about what has the community asked for, what is the community supported, what do you think that they want?
but wait, I'm still no, Lori,
Put words in her mouth.
no, I'm still misunderstanding that. So I thought like in Berlin, where we know, or we hear, yes, 5%. What if, so I guess my question is, are there two votes, and maybe other parents have this question. In Berlin, the school committee is gonna approve one budget. It's not gonna be the same budget that Berlin approves, right? So what happens there? Is there two votes?
No,
Okay.
it's,
School committee approves the budget.
we will send this budget, whatever we send, to the town meeting. That will be on the agenda for the town meeting. Typically, the finance committee might say, yeah, we support this, or we support something else.
Yeah.
Right, in Berlin, they're talking about 5%. Okay, so they might stand up and say, well, we don't think we can support this, we can only support this one. And then someone makes a motion. I motion to approve budget 1 or budget 2, whatever it is. Any voter can make a motion. Any voter can make a motion. So I guess whoever speaks.
Berlin. Right, because like what if someone came in first and said, I make a motion to approve this 5% budget and it passes, right?
I mean,
Well,
Whatever Berlin.
with the budget that the school committee approves.
yeah, and it's either yes or no on this, or the finance committee will say they recommend it or they support it.
That's it.
But nobody can make a motion and say I want less.
Like Carolyn said, you want to work with the town, right?
Yes.
Of course, that's the goal, right? Ultimately, our goal is to approve a budget that speaks to, student achievement. And that's a really,
Yeah.
six of us are here for. This is only a year because of special increase. And that puts us in this predicament where there's no, we are going to go in the town floor, not on the same page. It was, I don't know how often it's happened in the past. And that's tonight's point where the only budget that will get presented will be this school committee budget.
Gotcha.
FinCom will stand up like they want to do budget and we say, FinCom recommends that, and then sit back down, and then the discussion will be had on this budget.
So they're voted on this budget, Julie. Nobody can say, well, we don't want this one, we want this one. Let's vote on this one.
If they don't approve it, we have to then present another.
I know that, yeah.
In the future, there's, you know,
Yeah.
we have to have a meeting.
It has to be done by July 1st. Yeah, got that,
Right.
yeah.
So
So,
that was my point, Mike, was if you guys go
To
in,
take it back to school.
hypothetically, you guys put in these 2 aides and a principal, was it?
yeah,
You
so
go with that one. It gets struck down, you guys can still go back and take out an aide or take out the principal, and we're still at level. You don't want to go at level because the town's gonna want to see some wiggle room for you. They're gonna want to see that you're willing to negotiate, right? That you came down and that you're hearing them, and if you don't leave some buffer in there for yourself, you may come in at lower than level, is all I'm saying.
so this number right here, 22,308,598.
Yeah.
This includes the assistant principal and the two aides.
Right.
Is that correct?
Somebody asked about behavioral analysis.
Is that, yes, is that correct?
That is 2 aides and an assistant, additional assistant principal.
This number on the screen there. Correct. And someone asked a question about how much the BCBA that was originally cut out of the funds.
With benefits from between 120 and 130,000.
130,000. Okay, so we know this budget includes the assistant superintendent and the 2 aides. We know. Yes. It does not include the BCBA, which is another 130,000. So. would anybody else make a motion? Anybody need to calculate?
I'd like to, I know,
If you want to add that.
So,
Yeah, let's do that.
what would that number be with 130 added to it? 520, 510.
Yeah, 22, 510, 598.
That's wrong.
I get it, because I do rough math. I'm a second grader.
We're smart.
I have a calculator.
All right, so would you say 22?
$22,510,598 would include a BCBA with benefits throughout the district, an additional assistant principal at Tohoto, and 2 additional paraprofessionals at Boylston Elementary.
Okay. That's the total number that could be broken down as it needs to be. That's the number.
Okay, can I ask one thing for that, Mike? When you see the impact on the towns there? The increase to the
So
towns?
I don't have it with,
We'll be quick with math, right? Because
this is a formula.
Well,
This is not quick math for assessments.
Well,
Hold on.
the BCBA, it would just be,
Has to be 130. Roughly.
we have 1,000 students, about what, 700 Boylston and 300 Berlin,
Yeah. no, here, it's showing-
400 Berlin, 600, it's 40, 60, Julie?
The screen.
I mean, roughly 60. 35, 35, 65.
Yeah,
Right, you know, it'd be higher because there's more kids in Boylston Elementary.
I don't think it's simple.
Okay,
But
Not that simple.
okay, never simple.
you're talking about is the break down the town responsibility for the Honda. That's what you're talking about?
Just,
That's-
in general.
no, that's what you're talking about, 60/30 split. The-
Yeah, but
the
the
amount of
BCBA
the-
would be 3 across the board, for all schools, right?
Yeah, so,
Three, well, it would just be split boys.
so there's
No.
a different percentage of BMS, BES.
Yeah.
No, because Tohoto isn't 50/50, right? 65, I mean, I guess, yeah, we could do it how we did the health teacher, you're right, Julie.
We're voting on.
0.25, 0.25, 0.5.
We're voting on total budget.
We're voting on a
How it
total.
gets broken down between towns. Formula.
Okay, can do. Don't worry, it's okay, I'm sorry.
So that number is 22,510,590.
My only question is, do we throw in a third at kindergarten age?
Yes.
You get it.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah.
What would that? be?
Carol?
Additional figures.
We said the age are 75,000 each at Boylston.
So-
At least one.
75 each, with the benefits. And then we said Thursday.
I don't know, I think so.
Oh, no, she said 75 for two.
All right.
For two. So you're right, it would be 40 something.
Take a breath.
Someone make some tea.
I asked her to- I asked
Did
her-
you say 75?
Tea, how's it, jazz it up.
Yeah, you're right.
I think what kind of tea do we need, you know? We don't have tea. All right. I feel, so here's what I feel with the age.
Nothing is on the table to discuss other than asking questions to Nancy.
Okay.
So it'd be an additional 50,000 for another kindergarten aide with benefits.
It would do, yes. But it would also mean Boylston taxes go up a little bit more. All right, so it's 22,510, 598 plus, no, 50,000. 22,516, 598. The number on 22,516,
There's nothing on the
598.
table yet, there's no motion.
Nothing, that's where we're at right now.
Procedure question, right? When we make a motion, does it have to be based on money, or can we say we want a level budget plus X,
I
Y,
think the
and
best thing to do would be a motion to accept the particular. number, so no one's confused.
You have to do it.
What is it?
Yeah, yeah, just- yeah,
The
they're-
additional-
The actual position.
the additional
Position
3
plus-
aides.
Yeah, not the number, whatever. We can't do it.
All right.
I agree.
So does anybody have any more questions for Nancy on the presentation, or does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the level service budget as presented with 3 kindergarten aides at Boylston Elementary School, 1 assistant principal at Tohoto Middle High School, and 1 certified behavioral analyst that would be across the district. 3 kindergarten aides at Boylston Elementary School, 1 assistant principal at Tohoto Regional, and 1 certified behavioral analyst that would travel throughout the district. Yeah, certified behavioral is on page 3.
ACBA is the correct,
BCBA.
All right, Lori, you have that language?
I do.
All right, make a motion that Julie seconded, anybody want to discuss it? Does anyone want to discuss the motion?
I cannot understand.
The only thing is there anything else?
Oh, we can't discuss that now. We can discuss it.
Oh, you guys discussed this motion, all right, so what do you think?
You can make an amendment.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I want to.
Yeah, so my question was, should we discuss this floating nurse? Like, I'm not trying to add, I'm not trying to make this crazy. I'm just saying, like, there's some things on here that are quite concerning. Like, I know we never had a floating nurse before COVID. And COVID brought that need because we had everybody doing the tests and things like that. How is not having this floating nurse going to impact us? Have we used the floating nurse a lot this year? How will it impact us next year?
she's
subs.
So I just, and Janelle, you can jump in too. So the floating nurse, because we haven't been able to hire nurses. If we were fully staffed in all the schools, I don't believe so. Janelle over, this is Janelle's thing, but that's my take on it. And that's why.
Right now.
We are fully staffed right now.
So we have one nurse in each building.
Correct. All three buildings have their own school nurse. And then, as Lori was saying, during COVID, the district used grant funds to add a fourth nurse for the district, also known as the floating nurse. And those grant funds are going away, right? This is the last year for those funds. So it would be at that additional cost to keep that floating nurse. We are fully staffed in all three buildings for the nurses. However, that floating nurse has provided coverage when we have not been fully staffed. That need has been decreasing over recent months, not increasing. But as we have used that floating nurse for building coverage this school year.
And before COVID, when we did not have a floating nurse, a nurse was out for any reason. What was the process?
Yeah, so before COVID was a very different time in health offices.
Yeah.
But we had
But it's
substitutes.
COVID.
So we had a small pool of building sub nurses that would cover the nurses' offices when the regular nurse was out. That pool went away during COVID, and that was part of the issue that we could not bring in additional staff, which is why the administration brought in that floating nurse at that time. So things that have continued to change, and it's hard to know exactly, but it does seem as though the nursing staff has stabilized recently. We have been able to rebuild a solid pool of sub nurses for the district. There are 5 or 6 substitute nurses. They do all have other full-time jobs, but they tend to be parents in the community who are interested in being, part of the schools and being able to contribute in that way. So we have had more stability recently.
Well, and I know, Mike, I reviewed on the committee at the same time, when we first initially got the floating nurse, it was supposed to be a temporary thing for COVID. It was never expected to be something that we would have later.
Right.
Do you find that, what are we doing right now with that floating nurse? What is she doing for us?
The floating nurse supports the offices, provides coverage when one of the nurses needs to be out, supports screenings. There are a number of mandated screenings that needs to happen in each of the offices. Tahanto's number does require that we have there's a number issue with the Tahanto population where the recommendations that came out in the late 90s were to have one full-time school nurse for every, I believe it's 500 students. Obviously our census at Tahanto is a little bit higher than that. So she supports that office when there aren't screenings or absences elsewhere.
My school in this building, they only have one nurse. They always have, right? There's over 500 in this building. And to your point, those guidelines came out in the 90s. Nobody told about this. Well, and the 6th grade used to be at the elementary school.
Oh, that's another valid point. So this building was probably had way less people.
Yeah, and we also have like a big population, it's just the nature of the house market, we have a huge population.
So we're starting to go down the path of John Orman.
I know.
Everything here is the.
I feel better talking to you about, because I know what the attention was with the floating nurse.
Yes.
And knowing, and I trust you implicitly, so I appreciate your honesty. Very well done.
The motion on the table is for the budget that includes the 3 kindergarten aides in Boylston, VCBA, and the assistant principal at that's a discussion among the committee. No discussion.
I would wonder how this will be perceived by the boys. I'm just thinking about that. I mean, I know we said that.
Me too.
We know we're mindful of the town's budget. This is not going to be too favorable there at all. Maybe it will be, I don't know.
Our responsibility is to the schools.
Correct,
and the
that's
students.
right, that's right.
And I would argue that, if the town wants to on class size, especially kindergarten, they're like feral cats. You just get kind of sit in a circle and things that you need, One of the reasons we had kids, we took them out of the preschool that they were in, where they could have continued going to school, is because of the small class size in the age that were in kindergarten. The assistant principal at Tohoto, I don't think that's a want, I think that's a need. And same thing with the BCBA. I mean, we've seen so many needs, especially at the high school. I don't know so much at the, I'm sure in John Ray's indicated they have it in the elementary school as well.
Yeah.
And I just think that that could help us in so many other ways. And maybe those things could take care of other budget items in the future. So I'm just giving my opinion. I feel like these, you know, to the Boylston FinCom, we're not being willy-nilly. We're not asking, I think the finance board is a great one. I'm sad that one's not. I'm not asking for that. I'm saying, I think these are very important things. They're not wants, they're needs. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I wonder, I wonder 3 aides in Boylston versus 1 in Berlin, you know, how do
What are the numbers?
The Berlin teacher student ratio, if they,
Sure, it's not. So what do you have,
25 kids per 2 teachers and an 8.
right now you have 21, but yeah, keep dropping, maybe 25, 2 teachers. So the class sizes are gonna be like 12, 13, and there'll be 20 and
So
we 21, 22.
I have
and-
a question really negative for kindergarten, all right?
Awesome.
You get it, have a kid going in. You're involved with the youth sports. Preschool sports. What are your numbers looking like for preschool sports this spring? Is it under 20 kids?
Oh, see, I don't do soccer.
Yeah.
Basketball.
I'm hearing it more than 20.
I do T-ball.
Yeah,
I do T-ball. It's huge. We have cupcake kids from U6 soccer. I don't do it. I
Pre-K specifically, yeah.
pre-K U6 soccer. They
That's-
in a
that's
day it's sold out in Boylston.
Yeah.
And
I know Boylston's big. I will-
T-ball.
Berlin, I believe I heard they had over 40.
Okay, so you probably are expecting more registration.
They could include kinder. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a huge kinder.
No, Berlin, I just heard that they're 40 is that.
Oh, it's 40,
Yeah. She
Yeah.
said they had over 40.
but it would include kids that are in current kinder too. So I don't know how big your current kinder is. U6 would be kids that are,
Maybe I don't think.
No, she does the other program too. They do both. They
but
do
it's
both
always
guys, too.
preschool and kinders together. So it'd be hard to differentiate, you know what I'm
The
saying?
idea is it's probably more than, probably
It is-
more
it
than
is a lot.
20 kids.
It's a lot.
It'll be more, it's just so
there's
hard.
There's probably a motion on the table that we're
Yeah.
discussing. Is there any more discussion on this motion? Okay. All in favor of this motion, which is the budget that includes pre-kindergarten needs in Boylston, the BCBA for the district, and the assistant principal at the hospital. We'll go with Julie.
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Lisa? Megan?
Aye.
Jess? So that motion passes unanimously. The dollar amount was 22,560,000. What?
Okay, so
That's
We voted on positions.
that was
22,785,598. 3 kindergarten pairs, an assistant principal, and a BCBA.
what was the number?
22,785,598.
All right.
Berlin Lamar Elementary will be $302,541. Boylston, $5,907,338. Boylston Elementary. Tohoto, $11,350,719.
All right. Motion passed.
So
Yes.
now you need to vote on the E and D for 150,000 as presented.
Okay. Is there a motion for that?
So moved. Or I'd like to make a motion to approve the E and D excess and deficiency as presented in the budget for 150,000.
Jess, seconds. All in favor? Or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, so our budget is approved.
You want the left?
Yep. So next up, you guys have it electronically. We don't have to print it. I'm sorry. Is a resolution to send to the state, I assume through our elected representatives, This template was provided by another school district, sent through the MASC listserv. It's that's there in front of you. The Student Success and Technology Subcommittee met yesterday to discuss this language. The language as you have it there was we agreed we should do that language. There are some numbers in there that I've asked Nancy and Janelle to start taking a look at. I don't think we have them finalized yet. So if we were to approve this language, it would be pending updating these numbers. So does anybody have any questions about that?
I just wanted to point out, there was two things brought up at the committee meeting yesterday. The date needed to be changed at the top.
Yeah.
Spaces between the paragraphs, and there was some thought to maybe include a sentence. The possibly the fourth paragraph, before the last sentence. Say something along the lines, in addition to out of district, in-district special education costs of blank that do not meet the threshold of the reimbursement and whatever the fund, provide another financial barrier to hire additional personnel to create programs to be able to provide in-district services for us.
Yeah, so that was the question on this particular resolution was around circuit breaker. We want the state to reimburse the circuit. Circuit breaker only applies to out of district placement, or does it apply to all special?
It can apply to students that are in district, but often the students that are in district don't meet the threshold.
Okay. So the language Jess is proposing to add is around those in-district services. Do we have any, we think that we get reimbursement from the state for next year? Is it worth adding that language? I know that I don't need to put you on the spot.
Do you want me to read it?
But
Can I ask you this, Janelle, is that threshold, it's 4 times the state average?
It is, that's what the language is, that's how it's
So-
described, but sometimes the number itself doesn't match that. The number itself is a little bit lower or higher, but that's by definition.
The number itself being what number, what number?
Like when they actually set the threshold number, sometimes it doesn't actually, the math doesn't add up. So it's supposed to be 4 times the state average,
Yeah.
but then they'll set the threshold. The state makes a decision about where to set that threshold, and it might be a little bit more or a little bit less. That's something that's a little bit beyond our understanding of exactly how they come to that decision. So the letter says, and it moves it down from 4 times the average to 3 times the average, from 75 to 90%.
yeah, that's the, I think that's current legislation that's being proposed. It's, the letter is basically in support of legislation. So again, the question is, Jess's language is to include language in there about in-district costs. Do you suspect that we need that? Is it worth adding?
Can I ask you to repeat it? For sure. Yeah, so, in addition to out-of-state stipend costs, in-district special education costs of blank that do not meet the threshold of reimbursement at blank %, provide another financial barrier to hire additional personnel to create programs to be able to provide in-district services for us. I mean, it sounds like reinforcing language. I don't see where if it takes you in a different direction. I think it's just reinforcing.
Okay, so add, okay.
I agree.
So then we want to make a motion that we will send this letter to our state representatives, adding this language after Nancy, you know, the financial figures. Yes, no?
With the additional Lisa's name,
Yeah.
the vote ratio,
Yeah.
just up to them.
So the motion on the floor is to send this resolution to the state representatives as updated. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Julie, all in favor? Anyone against? Okay, we will work on that language, get it updated, and we'll send it out.
Great.
All right, we voted on that, so our next meeting is the 4th, and can I move to adjourn the meeting, please? Second,
Thanks.
in favor?
Aye.
All right, yes, nobody, all right.